quite cool. Okay, and then you want to get into actually physically touching the feet, right? So we come over to part 2 here, which is the physical cues, okay? So overall, while touching, again, check the feet to see if they now feel similar, right? So they might look all puffy and stuff, but when you actually touch them, you'll actually find out that maybe they're all muscly or tense, right? So your first impression of just looking might give you some different information than when you actually touch. So this is also very important to also indicate on your chart. Because, for example, I don't know, I'm just kind of going with it here, but if you see somebody that looks swollen and their feet look swollen and bigger than they actually are, and then when you touch them, they're actually quite, soft and maybe rigid and muscly, that can tell a lot about them, because so maybe in their life they're getting treated a certain way when they're actually a different way. If I don't know if you can follow me there, but some people just from their look of themselves, right? So we're not just talking about feet now, we're talking about their overall sort of personality. Some people might think they're kind of like edgy or hardcore kind of people, but when you actually get close to them and touch them, they are quite gentle and quite loving people, right? So that's just an example of what the kind of information that you could get from somebody's foot, right? So check how they feel, right? You want to just do a quick overview. And something else that I like to do as well is I like to hold in 3 areas. Let's see here, check temperature. So that's the next one that we'll do. And I'll show you this little hold. So it doesn't matter where you start. I like to start at the bottom, and then you can just hold this way. So you hold one hand underneath, and you can just kind of feel like that. This is giving you a good indication. I like to take my top hand and just wrap it around this way, like what I'm doing. And what this does is it tells you the basic lower third of the foot, the heel, all around there. You can get a sense of the temperature, right? And then you move up to here. Okay, so I do a little bit of a hold like that, and then I'm going to move up to feel the toes, right? This gives you an indication of the temperature, right? Are the toes colder than the heel, or the toes, or the middle, right? So this gives you an indication of different temperatures, right, of the foot. This is also giving you an indication of what we talked about before was some of the texture of the skin, right? So you can feel around as well. And then indicate on the chart that there. Check the condition of the calluses. So now we have already charted saying calluses are here, here, here. But what do they actually feel like? So when you actually touch them, like for example on the shoulder reflex here, it's very common to have calluses there. So when you actually touch it, is it a new callus or is it really, really thick, right? So newer calluses will be kind of like, especially in color, they will be sort of more red because they're sort of new, right? There's been friction that created it, and so it's new, but it's not deep, deep, deep layers of skin, right? It's sort of more on the surface. The top layers are, sort of building up to protect itself, but there's not a lot there. Where is somebody who has shoulder issues and they're walking and putting a lot of pressure on this area of their foot, they're going to have layers and layers and layers of skin that's really thick and hard, right? So that gives you an indication. So just looking again, oh, that looks like a new callus, and then when you go up and touch it, oh no, that's really deep and thick and old, right? So that gives you more information when you actually are touching the feet, right? Touching the calluses. So that's what I do, as I feel around for the areas that I've already indicated where calluses were, and just check them out physically. How do they feel, right? And then I like to do a bit of a mobility sort of procedure, and I've written them down here. So I'll check the ankle rotation. So how do they turn their ankle, right? Is it able to go? And I, again, check both directions, right? So, for example, it's easy to come in, right? But as I go out, it's really stiff. So I'll write that down, right? So check dorsiflexion and plantarflexion, right? So dorsiflexion means pulling this part of your foot towards them, right? So bringing up. And then plantarflexion, bringing down towards the bottom of your foot, right? Don't have to know that, but just know to flex one way towards their head and away from their head, right? So there. How is the movement there, right? Is it easier to go down, or do they resist when you push up, right? So does that can give you information as well. I also like to check the bones that are in here. Are they able to move freely, or are they really stuck? So I'll go down each valley, I'll hold nice and tight here, and I'll just shake back and forth. Check there, check there, check there, and check there, right? How is that feel? Is it looser? Is it, tight, right? That's basically what I'm looking for. Then we can check the mobility of the toes. So I'll kind of move them forward, move them backwards. The same thing that we did with the feet, right? Okay, that's good. I'll try to spread them a little bit, move them this way. Just kind of see how they move around, right? It gives you lots of information as far as that goes, right? Again, from the bigger picture down into smaller areas to see how the toes function, right? Especially if you're getting toes that are overlapping and stuff, how stiff are they, right? Are they really stuck like that, right? And then you just check the entire foot and then notice any tension. So I do a little scan, okay? So I wrote here in brackets a dot-to-dot scan. What that is I just go down the foot like this, and this is what I'm calling dot-to-dot. So this is dot-to-dot, all the way down, and I'm scanning all the way down the foot to feel where there's tension areas, right? Like if I'm going along here, I go, oh yeah, okay, shoulder area, I'll indicate that on the map. Keep going down. Oh, there's some tension areas over here. So I'll indicate that on the map as well, on the chart. We're making a map really. Right? So, and then you want to look at any type of unique quality. So as you're doing this little dot-to-dot thing, you might notice some pops, some kind of gritty areas, right? I find it really common to find some sort of like sandy, gritty, poppy areas in the lung area, right? So you can write all those down. You can feel like maybe their foot clicks weird when you're rotating it one way and only on the left foot, where on the right foot there wasn't any of those clicky things. So anything like that, physically unique about their feet. Maybe they're, maybe they have webbed toes, right? That's a really cool indication to write down, right? Because they're very unique to any other feet, right? What else? Bone protrusion, stuff like that. Anything that's kind of, deformities, anything like that, right? So just mark that down. What's unique about this person's foot as compared to the other feet that you've seen, right? And write that down. Because you can get a lot of information that way as well. So that is a big checklist that I go through, and you want to move through it pretty quickly, okay? And get efficient at charting this, because it's going to give you a lot of information. And when you chart in a similar fashion to this, you're going to notice that you're getting a lot of information written down, and you will have as reference for later, right? So see if this can help you out if you aren't already doing this. Maybe there's a couple things on this checklist that you kind of left out. That's totally fine. It might not be that important to you, but I find that this is something that I use, and it gives me a really big picture of the client's feet. So another really useful tip for you to help with charting, or at least it's been really great for me, is to have a couple different colors of pens, okay, or pencils, or whatever you want to use. I actually like using pencil crayon, okay? So when I have more colors, I can detail it better. Like I said before, I'm more of a visual person, and I don't want to write a lot because it takes me longer, and it's something I don't know what to write sometimes, right? Or the descriptions tend to drag out and be really long. Whereas for me, just indicating a line or an area is going to be really great. And another thing too is because we're working with such small little areas like the feet, you might notice that, for example, here, I can just show you something really quick. So in the shoulder area on this side of the foot, there is an indication of calluses, right? So there's calluses. And what I can do also with this is I can actually make little areas that are darker than the other area, which indicates to me, right? So you can see there that there is more importance or thicker skin here, if we're talking about calluses there. Another thing I can do is I can actually write with a different color here. So I'm actually doing red here, right? That down at the bottom, it's actually quite red and inflamed, for example, right? So that's kind of cool there. Then there's actually a little mole here, right? So, and then I have over here, there's also some kind of squiggly, weird lines that come through here, okay? So if you can see that there, right? So now, the great thing about using different colors is this is all layered. And if I had to do this all with pencil, it would look completely different, right? For example, I'll just do it on the other side here. You can still see it, right? It's fine to chart this way, but I prefer this because right away I can tell sort of the more detail by the charting, right? I find it. It's like these are similar, they give me information, but I'll know that, you know, for here I'll put I don't know, a mole. Right, up here is a mole. Right? So I just find it really useful, and I like using different colors. It gives me more information, and it's easier for me to chart and see later a visual representation of the actual feet, right, for me. And again, it doesn't need to be perfect, right? You can just do little indications, but that gives me an idea that, yeah, the importance here in this session was working on their shoulder reflex. And then later on, maybe I'll find that it's faded a little bit, and so I will only use the orange color, for example, right? So that's just a little tip that I think can make your charting really even more easy to understand for later, right? So I know we didn't go over and chart somebody's foot one by one, but I wanted to make this video because I think it's really important to have a checklist, and everybody's foot is different. And if I show you on somebody's foot, this is how you chart a foot, I don't want that to be solid for you, right? I wanted to make this video so that you can start doing it now and getting the checklist and just working through it that way so that you can do it. Maybe in other videos I might go through in a little bit more detail about what clients and what I think is important in feet. But when you go through this checklist and write down as many of the stuff that shows up under each category, you're going to have a really well charted foot, right? Feet. This can be a really good learning resource for you. So all these little indications work into different parts of reflexology as well. It's like some people in reflexology, they're really focused on the structure and the process of working on the feet. Other reflexologists are really into, you know, reading the feet. What does every little thing mean? What does this mean in their life? So they're, you know, like foot readers, right? So they're really into that. So what you can do after you've charted your feet really well is find out, like, do these things relate to your structure, to your posture, right? Is there something that they can be corrected by their footwear, or is there exercises that you can recommend them? Or you know, is there something in their life emotionally bothering them, right? These indications are, you know, showing up. What does this line mean as far as, you know, being able to swallow your truth or things like that? Like, what does this line mean as far as reading the feet, right? So there's so many layers to this. So even if you are a foot reader person and you do all the charting, and or if you're more of a structural person, more interested in that, the lines and indications and all the charting that you did work in both ways. So that's a really cool thing about charting the feet really well. And so this becomes a really good resource. So you can look back at what you've charted, and they can be great learning tools for you. And so I have kind of a rule too, that if something keeps showing up 3 times and I don't know what it is, I will go and research it, because I feel the universal feet are telling me that I need to learn this, right? So if I see a line that shows up on 3 clients, or is commonly showing up, I will go out and find out what that line means. So there's a lot of books out there right now on the topic of reading the feet, right? And one of my favorite people that I go to, there's a couple of them, but my first one is Chris Stormer, and she just has any book by her is great, because she just goes right into talking about what the meaning behind all the lines and the feet and the directions of the toes and all that, right? So if you're not familiar with her, go pick up a book of hers. In the description below, I'll recommend my go-to one, and it's my favorite book so far. She has a bunch now, which is The Language of the Feet. And I have the second version, which is really great. Another person who's really amazing is Sam Belia. And his book is called Foot Reading, Reflexology Primer on Foot Assessment. So that is a really great book that I got a lot out of. And he has a new one out as well that goes even further in depth, and it's amazing. I can't even understand it. It's so good. But so yeah, those are the 2 that I would really recommend if you're interested in learning about all the different parts and language of the feet. I'm sure you have some that you'd like as well. If you do, put a comment in below so other people can find which ones you think are really great. I also have a bunch of videos on YouTube that talk about, you know, what the colors of the feet, what temperature of the feet means, and things like that. So you can go back into the archives of all the other videos that I've been doing and find them that way. So yeah. So anyway, I hope this was useful for you. Foot charting can be quite a boring process, but I think it's fun and I really like it. And later on, I can get so much information about it, and it becomes a great resource for me for learning more about reflexology. So hopefully it was helpful for you. So anyway, thanks for watching today. All the stuff that I talked about, hopefully I'll link it in the description below. Yeah, so until next time, remember to keep those feet happy and chart them well. Take care. Bye-bye. If you're interested in learning more about reflexology, you can subscribe to the channel below. It's also very helpful to hit that like button, and feel free to share it with anybody who you think might be interested in it. You can find my online courses, Reflexology Charts, and other reflexology goodies over on my website, which is balancingtouch.ca. Thank you so much for watching today, and if you have some more time, you can check out some other videos. Till next time, this is Adam Thomas from balancingtouch.ca. See you later.